and welcome to another episode of Flat Rate World Live. I am Wes McDonald, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Kenneth Edmonds. How are you, Ken?
I am fine, other than disappointed because I was supposed to be somewhere else this week, but I am here.
Yeah, you were an unexpected co-host today because you're actually supposed to be on a cruise, and I'm sorry that you weren't able to do it, but I'm super thrilled that you're here with us again today.
No, it's always a joy to get together with you and talk about our industry.
Yeah, and I thought we'd have some fun today. I was kind of inspired. I've actually been working on a video series for Tiger Paw Software, and I've just finished doing some edits for one with Gap Intelligence on the consumer side of the print world. And it's funny how this has come up. Valerie Aldhaman, who's the senior analyst there, she's also a member of the top 100 at Tiger Paw. So I've gained some incredible insights, as have the members, with regards to what's happening with consumer grade print out there and how it's impacting our channel. And it's really something that we can no longer ignore. So the topic today on consumer grade printers, do they suck? We're going to dive into this. We're going to look at some statistics that Gap was kind enough to share with me, as well as ask some questions for everyone that's out there. Please make sure that you contribute as we dive through, this deep, hard question of whether or not consumer grade printers suck, or if they could be an answer to some of the problems that we're having in our space. So please make sure you leave your questions and comments. Join the conversation. If you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube Live, we'd love to hear from you. So make sure you jump in. And of course, Ken, what do you like to know?
I want to know where you're watching from. It's the flat rate movement is a global phenomenon. There are dealers in Australia, in the UK, in France, in the islands that are all taking part, plus the US. I don't want to neglect the US. That are all taking part in the shift to a new billing model, to the purple cow of the industry right now. And so we want to know where you're watching from.
Yep. Let us know. And you don't have to be providing flat rate services to let us know. We'd love to hear from you anyway. So make sure you jump in. One of the first stats I'm going to jump to, I'm actually going to share my screen here for a second. And this is a slide that I really loved being able to have a look at because it kind of paints a picture, is that, Ken, for every year that I've been involved in this space, printer prices have gone down, right, for the same model. So every year they introduce a new model with the same speeds and feeds that we see a significant discount in what that looks like until this year, right? And I don't have a similar stat to be able to look at, kind of the office equipment channel versions of some of the more enterprise offerings, but certainly in the consumer space, when you look at color MFPs, right, that those prices are holding steady. So it's quite incredible to see. And according to Gap, we're seeing for most manufacturers, I know in the interview we talked, about most of the usual suspects, that increase is about 15%. So it's a pretty big jump. It's also holding steady, which is quite amazing, right? And what do you think some of the reasons for that are? Well, one of them that we talked about in detail was this idea that stock levels are down, right? So as we go back to another stat, I'm just going to bring this one up, Ken, that stock levels we're actually down by 66%. I can't even get my head around that. So, for every 100 printers, there's only 44 that are available this year, right? So absolutely shocking.
Well, but we think about what's happened in the channel as a whole. Most dealers would tell you that if you're looking for A3 devices, that the stock level is zero. They're having trouble getting equipment. Most of them have gone to repurposing equipment, that comes in off lease, trying to continue to keep in the business because the supply chain for everything has been so disrupted. You go to your grocery store, there's not food. So those disruptions are causing a problem across the channel. And then, it's going to add to the cost because of inflation and increased demand compared to supply side.
Yeah. And this slide that I'm showing here really paints the picture, right? That if you go to any of these big stores and have a look around, you're going to notice a lot of empty shelves. And the only thing left on the shelves at this particular location are demo models, right? And that little sign was something, this is a picture that Valerie was kind enough to share in her presentation. really apologizes for the limited inventory that's available there, right? So
Yeah.
I got to think that those models sitting on the shelf are solid gold. So that is an absolutely staggering number. And I'd be curious if there's any dealers or other people in the Office Equipment channel that are tuned in today, if they have any similar statistics that are impacting kind of our traditional space. If you could share some of those, insights as well. I do know that it's down, Ken, as you mentioned. We've seen a lot more people using previously loved or refurbished equipment. As you've said, driving further life out of those things just to be able to satisfy customer needs, right?
Exactly. And I think it's a good thing because it's really interesting. In my experience, I've seen equipment come out of the field that had, 3 or 4 more years of good life in it. And in fact, I talk a lot about this in my service class and when I speak. Is too often we take equipment out of a client's office right when it reaches peak profitability. So it becomes one of those things that we have to, there's an advantage to reusing equipment, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes. And hey, that stat that I mentioned earlier by about 15%. But if you look at any of the in-store prices, they're up even higher. So look at that for laser jets up by about 24%. Inkjet tank solutions seem to have only had a slight increase, and inkjet cartridges at 37%. So I'm sure that there's a few dealers feverishly taking notes on that one to try and compete against that for some of those installs that have been taken over, right? Because that technology certainly has really made an impact on the print market, right? These high yield tank systems from Epson and others that are starting to produce those, right?
Well, exactly. And I think that one of the things that is too often overlooked in the channel is that ink is becoming starting to develop so many advantages. And probably one of the number one advantages of ink is that it is the most ecologically friendly of the technologies, because you're not throwing away developers and drums and fuser units and a drum cartridge, all the things, all the plastic and stuff that we throw away in the typical channel. We don't do that in ink. And it used to be that ink, the quality wasn't that good, but I have I won't mention the brand name, but I have a inkjet I've had since I started my home office. No repairs and print quality. I can choose to go draft and save on the supplies, but I can also print vivid color, near photo quality with it.
Oops, sorry about that. I did have some issues with people posting comments. So if someone has tried to post, I know the last one I did for some reason, StreamYard was having some issues with the actual comments.
Yeah, we can't always see everybody's comments. But I think that we're going to see move more and more into the mainstream. You can look at the manufacturers that currently have 100 page a minute, and I went to the Print Expo in Chicago in must have been 2018, maybe it was 2019. I don't remember.
Pre-COVID.
Do what?
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID. Yeah, pre-COVID, post-COVID. But it was interesting to me that as I looked at all of the manufacturers, and I'm talking about anybody that was in the really high-end market, you had ink. Konica was there with ink. Sharp was there with ink. Xerox was there with ink. HP was there with ink. Risso was there with ink. And it is becoming an ink world at the very high end. We've always had ink at the very low end. So how much longer will it be before ink takes over the mid-range?
Yeah, it's certainly having an impact, right? And as I said, I just put down below here, consumer printers, the answer for the remote office, right? Or are they the problem, right? And inkjet certainly is a big, portion of that, right? And I know that we like to tell ourselves that these things aren't reliable, right? And that's one reason that we shouldn't be using them. That's why they suck. And the second reason is that they're just hideously expensive, right? And I'll kind of throw my own example in there, not trying to eat my young, but my wife has a retail store. She has a small footprint color inkjet MFP, which she uses for her business. She's had it probably for 5 years now, right? the thing has never broken. The ink heads have never dried out, and it does what she needs it to do. Right now, warranted, because I'm in the space, I did buy a more expensive printer versus just trying to go for the cheapest printer and the most expensive ink. Right, I did my homework. Hopefully, I at the number of years I've been in this space, I would do that. But it's been bulletproof and it's been economical. And part of the reason that it's been economical is because she simply doesn't print that much, right? So maybe she'll go 3 or 4 days without printing anything at all. And then she'll, have a day where she needs 3 to 4 things that she has to print. If it's a new sign to put in the window or something out on the, the store floor or whatever, right? So I think that old argument that we use with customers, if they're having that same experience, I don't think it helps us in a sales capacity to say you shouldn't use those. They're expensive and they suck, right?
Well, I was going to say, because I have one that I just put ink in. I don't have to replace print it every time. And I've had it now, it's at about 3.5 years. It's an A3 device. And it sits on the top of a file cabinet, but it will print to 11 by 17. It will scan 11 by 17. It will copy 11 by 17. So it's a true A3 device. It just doesn't have an A3 paper drawer. You have to feed A3 through the bypass. No, I don't use it enough to matter, but if I need it to, I can do that. I've had it, and I use it quite a bit because I print for both of my businesses. I print quite a bit for personal things. And in 3.5 years, I've gone through some ink and one of those little things that soaks up the waste ink. I did that all the maintenance myself. It hasn't had to have feed tires. It hasn't had to have anything. And that's and I'm going to tackle our question a little bit. If you're selling per click maintenance, it's going to be impossible to sell per click maintenance on that device because it needs so little maintenance.
Absolutely.
But if you're selling flat rate, guess what? You're making a ton of money because you haven't had to work on it at all. So it is a product that fits in the mix if the customer wants that. The small, and we'll talk about this some more, but any of the small A4 devices in a remote printing operation can be either consumer or industrial grade and still be opportunities for us to make money.
Agreed. And, so we both have stories of, reliability and having smaller footprint devices in our environments, and the fact that they can be sold in a flat rate program. And that's not just something that we're recommending. That's something the OEMs are taking huge advantage of, right? So if you look at HP, a lot of their new subscription programs are entirely flat rate, unless there's, some kind of excess beyond whatever the contracted amount is. But they're not going above those contracted amounts, right? People said, "Oh, it's a terrible program. Look what it's going to cost you if you go beyond it." Well, guess what? It's not happening, right? So that if the OEMs are using the data, using algorithms to figure out what the right footprint is for those flat rate programs, I got to think that as a dealer community, we have to do the same thing as well, right?
Exactly. And it's just a matter of doing the math, really. All of the things, because we can figure out fairly quickly what a customer's volume has been. We can analyze what their expenses are going to be on it, and we can find ways to make money doing this.
Yes. And so I wonder, Ken,
slides?
Yeah. Well, I wonder, Ken, if, when we're talking about this, right, is the remote office going away? And should we be looking to satisfy that or simply let them buy from a marketplace provider, right? And the conversation you and I had just before we actually got started today, statistically, Amazon has been the 8,000-pound gorilla, if you will, in the room for everything online. And for printers, they've actually taken a bit of a back seat. In my conversation with Gap Intelligence, unless I misunderstood what Valerie was saying when we were speaking, is that basically they've looked at it as kind of a non-essential, part of office working. And so they've put very little effort into, kind of the footprint of what they're doing for printers, right? It's not to say you can't get them, but they're not really putting a lot of effort into that. So 2 things there. One, if Amazon thinks that printing is non-essential, That's something that we've got to think about and start looking at other ways to diversify. And the second part is these other marketplace options that customers are going to be buying from them. If it's a big box store, or anyone else, right? So maybe you can start this one, but is e-commerce an opportunity or a problem for our channel?
Okay, so I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
Okay, it can be a problem because if you're stuck in the old, and people don't like when I say this, that we're stuck in the old traditional model, because that model's changing. If we're stuck in the past, then e-commerce is probably a problem. But if we're focusing on acquiring customers and providing a broad suite of support for them, and this, I'm gonna talk for just a second about this, because the switch to the remote office opened up a huge opportunity for dealers that took advantage of it. Because you could put together a home office package that included UCaaS and a telephone that or you're just basically phone forwarding. You didn't even need to be a telephone. A device, a software to manage the device, to track the printing, to control and make sure that we understood what the person was printing in their home office. There was a great opportunity there to put together a bundle and go out and make money on that. And it didn't matter what device they were using. I love, we talk about it, the fact that, people have gone to Netflix and other kinds of subscription services. And I am a firm believer, and the manufacturers out there are not going to want me to hear me say this, but I don't care. Is that the brand has become so much less important. We talked last week about the fact that, in a car, there's parts from hundreds of manufacturers. Okay. Do you care? No, we don't care. Now, I can remember back in the late 50s and 60s that the carburetor mattered. You wanted that Holley-Carb on your high performance device. There was a time that it did matter, but it doesn't matter anymore. We don't care. It's just, we want to be able to get output. That's all the customer wants to buy is output. They don't want to buy the machine. They don't care about what the machine is. All they want is reliable output when they need it.
Yeah, agreed. And, one of the things with output that we've always talked about, we're all talking about business outcomes now as well, right? That it's not like, it's not a solution sale, or it's not a piecemeal sale, that we have to start delivering these business outcomes. And frankly, with print, it's the same thing. Output is outcome, right? That's what they're, concerned about, not about the pieces. I would argue maybe not even the technology, right? And part of the conversation that I had with Gap Intelligence also was around this idea that because of the scarcity of some of the traditional technologies like inkjet, like laser, that some of these alternative technologies, such as these large tank systems, have really picked up speed because they're the only things that people could buy, right? So now, for our dealer base, I know that one of the stats that we also looked at in that interview was the fact that the early adopters of e-commerce solutions and their own sort of marketplace solutions, and I'm sure that if you talk with Norm McConkey over at MPS Toolbox, or if you speak with the folks over at Keypoint Intelligence, right, with their solution as well, they will tell you that their dealers that were early adopters in those programs are making money hand over fist on those, right? So I had both Keypoint and MPS Toolbox on a call for the top 100 with TigerPaw last week, and I was stunned by some of the statistics of adoption for those programs, right? Like way bigger than I had thought. I thought that nobody was doing e-commerce in our channel, but it's definitely happening. And, Ken, one of the things I'll say as well is a different angle, not just giving people a place to buy those devices and the supplies, but to control what they're buying, right? And that's one of the beauties of having your own sort of storefront or your own marketplace solution. If you contract a customer for managed print, you have them on a flat rate program or other program, flat rate would be better, of course, that you can actually curate a list of products and supplies which that customer can have access to. So you give them that online experience with being able to buy like they would with Amazon, yet they only have options to devices and equipment that have been approved both by the dealer and by the head office, the corporate head office, right? And like, how good is that? I mean, you want to talk about a control mechanism. So you're having a hard time stocking, let's say, the devices that you do have in your list, and all of a sudden you've got to fulfill some other devices. Put them in the price book. Put them in the one that customers can order. And someone had a great quote. It was a few weeks ago I was speaking with them, but they said if you have a customer, let's say that they've only got 20 employees, and 5 of them are working out of head office, and 15 of them are working remotely. All of a sudden, you have an enterprise account, right? And you've got a whole bunch of new decision makers that are working out of those remote offices, which traditionally, as we've tried to adapt to this, we've let them make their own decisions, make their own minds up. It's like, here's your budget, go buy a printer, right? So to be able to use e-commerce, I think, Ken, to be able to control that, I think it's absolutely critical, right?
Oh, I think that's huge. And I think for a lot of dealers, because one of the things that I think gets overlooked is the nature of the buyer is changing. Because as we move into where the millennials and the Gen Ys and the Gen Zs are moving into the workforce and into buying decisions, they're used to buying online. And so I think that in a lot of cases, there are reasons that the dealers should open storefronts, and give them the ability to do the research, to build you could very easily build a tool. A client could come in and put in what their volume is and what their needs are. They could create a list of 3 possible options, that the customer could then just select, order it online, pay with a credit card, and you deliver it. Or you could set it up, okay, if you need financing, it just feeds into a financing tool. And what happens is these are people as they come into the workforce that are used to buying that way. And it changes the nature of how we sell, but a lot of times that can be a lot less expensive. And we can start to become pretty aggressive in pricing if we're not paying, 15, 16% net commission to the sales guy. And there's a lot of things we can do to still move equipment. And if we bundle that into a flat rate program, then they've already given us the information to create the flat rate pricing for it.
Correct. Yeah. And I think it really is the answer, Ken, because, it's hard enough for these corporate clients of ours that they have all these people that are working remotely and then having to track all of these disparate costs, right? Can you imagine, like, it's hard enough doing a cost per page reconciliation just for a corporate office, but then having 100 remote employees where you've also got to do the same thing, right? Like, what I'd want to know is that for each remote employee that I have, here's what I'm paying every month, right? So if that's by device, which is probably the simplest way to do it, however you want to do it to make sure that there is a flat rate subscription involved for that customer, for those devices, for those locations, right? Simple. Yeah.
Well, we want to add remote monitoring for it and remote tracking so that the home office can watch for changes. Not that we as a flat rate dealer, I won't say we don't care, but it's very unlikely that anybody's ever going to do anything that can hurt us based just on the actuarial usage, of our fleet when we do this. But it is important for them to make sure that they understand what's being printed and that somebody's not printing off their important files, so they have security on what the end user is printing. There's so many reasons to have the tracking. But again, we can build all of that in and make it where the person in the home office has the information and the reports they need without any real trouble. That's how World pop up. It just jumped out of my mouth.
Hey, I encourage everyone to visit flatrate.world. This is actually a site that we've built for end users and consumers to sort of understand the benefits of flat rate offerings. And Ken and I would love to help you. So if you want to get flat rate certified, there are many ways that you can do that. So make sure that you reach out to Ken or I, or both of us, so we can discuss what some of those options are, right? Some people are doing it by device. Some people are doing it by user. Some people are doing value-based systems, which incorporate both the device and the users. There's lots of ways to do this, and Ken and I can help you navigate what those options are and figure out which ones are best for you. So make sure you do reach out to us. And again, Flat Rate World, go for a visit. Have a look. Well, Ken, thank you very much for joining in again today. And for everyone out there in Flat Rate World, I want to thank you for tuning in. We do apologize if you were putting in comments. I know that I did have some issues with another live stream that I was doing. We should be able to see those comments after the live feed, and we will make sure to go in and answer those questions and give you any additional feedback that you may be looking for. So Ken, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
All right. We'll see you, everybody.